This video has been a long time coming. We promised that this channel would center around fan response and building a more positive community, and we intend to keep that promise. It was the huge influx of responses that we weren't expecting, so let's keep the conversation going, shall we? We won't show every single comment, nor will we read the whole thing out loud. We'll show any comments or images that were sent on screen, and Liz and I will simply discuss them. This is our first one, so we have responses of 3 videos to go over.
First, the Sonic Stories video. We asked you to tell us how you became a Sonic fan, and we got a good handful of replies.
This person's actually a friend of mine. Sonic Mega Collection. I have the original and Plus, by complete accident, mind you. 3D Blast is not a game I hear being a lot of people's first. I suppose it's better than Sonic Labyrinth.
I'll be honest, I haven't heard of those 2 games until I rejoined the Sonic fandom. All I know is that they were not very well received. I knew of the Mega Collection. I saw it a few times in Walmart back in the day.
A crossover comic with Image Comics. You wouldn't happen to be talking about when Sonic crossed over with Spawn, would you? That's Sonic Super Special number 7. That's Ken Pender's era. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I love how I'm still amazed that people can like Nintendo and Sonic at the same time without realizing I'm one of those people. It's way more common now as opposed to back in the 90s. The Adventure era has some gems, but it's great to hear that you enjoyed some early to mid-2000s titles. The handheld ones are underrated. This may sound strange, but Sonic's inclusion in Brawl practically resuscitated the fandom. The Sonic movie did that too, bringing old fans back and making new ones. I had the almost gave up on Sonic moment too. That was with Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and, admittedly, Sonic Forces. I have no doubts that people almost gave up on Sonic solely because they paid $60 for a half-finished product, Sonic 06. I wasn't there because I was too busy playing Kingdom Hearts 2. And I'm happy to say that I also met my best friend through Sonic.
Yep, thanks to a wacky talking blue hedgehog, the 2 of us met and became best friends. And now, here we are with this channel. I can relate with being both a Nintendo and Sonic fan, as my relatives also had a Nintendo 64 and we played Mario when we were there. I just remember Sonic being more memorable. And actually, I'm more of a Zelda fan than Mario. What can I say, I'm a sucker for medieval fantasy. Anyway, I really seem to be in the minority when it comes to next gen. The game seemed to turn people away while it drew me in. That said, I get where people are coming from. This is an entirely different beast compared to its predecessors. And while Shadow the Hedgehog was more or less a spin-off game that could easily be overlooked, Next Gen is not only a main game, but it also did go too far in a lot of areas. I still love the game for what it is, and I believe it has a lot of great ideas, but I do see where people are coming from when they talk about how it disappointed them. Especially since I've now experienced something similar with another Sonic game, but we'll talk about that in our Adventure 2 and Next Gen Part 2 video.
Alright, this one is from... Hey, wait a minute, we just got done talking in a video!
Hey Roger, great to see your comment!
You hated Tetris? I mean, it's an inoffensive game. I never heard of anyone hating it, though. Weird how they would offer 2 prizes of differing value. Maybe in some alternate universe you got the Game Boy and became a Pokemon fan instead. A world with 50 more videos like Pokemon Coliseum in 6 minutes and Pokemon Dissected, where you try to make their universe look anything but immoral. Maybe I should be thankful you talk about Sonic instead.
So am I. I got to work with you on a few videos and they've been fun.
Another Nintendo fan, and just like some other commenters, you love SA2. I forget how influential the TV shows were to everyone. Maybe that could be a video we could make at some point.
Yeah, we should talk about the TV shows in the future. But let's focus on one topic at a time for now.
Whoa! Crash Bandicoot! Okay. I'm sorry. Now that's a name I don't hear very often in the fandom. That makes perfect sense why you would like Rise of Lyric then, since Big Red Button made that, and members of Big Red Button hailed from Naughty Dog. Maybe I'm not a fan of Boom, but I'm thrilled it has some people that really like it. I want people to have different opinions in our community, that way it's not an echo chamber. We'll be talking about the Boom franchise at some point in the future, especially if you have a lot of good things to say about it. It'll help wash the bad taste it left in my mouth when it first came out.
I agree, Aaron. I may not be a big fan of Boom, but I am happy to see someone who is. I did enjoy playing it when it came out, and I could see the appeal of it for many reasons. I am a firm believer of taking the good with the bad, so this will be something for the 2 of us to consider when we get around talking about it.
Alright, next video, Sonic's tone problem. I know I already replied to this one, but I'm pointing it out again. We appreciate corrections like this. It teaches us that we should fact check everything. Though this is a pretty minor error, the T rating I thought was in Shadow the Hedgehog did change the tone in my mind. Don't be afraid to point out any errors we make. We're adults, we can take it.
Also, how can we improve if we make a mistake and it's not corrected? The best learning moments are the mistakes, after all. We will do our best to get our facts straight, but we're not perfect. Sometimes we need another set of eyes to help us with corrections and facts.
I stopped reading the comics around issue 200, and I don't know if I want to get into them again. It's like getting into Dragon Ball, there's so much there, it's kind of overwhelming. I'm familiar with Ian Flynn's writing, however. I would prefer him over Pontac and Graff, the people who wrote Colors, Generations, and Lost World. I could see why you dislike 06's writing so much, since it's so different from the rest of the series, and Forces is just a mess.
While I personally like Next Gen story, I could see where you're coming from. It is very different and did try a little too hard. But while Next Gen flew too close to the sun and got burned, Forces really felt slapdash. I admit I enjoyed it when it first came out, but that was mostly for the character writing. And as time changes, so do opinions. The story itself, in hindsight, doesn't have much meat on it, even for a simple story. As for the comics, I see their appeal, and I liked how they could explore other characters, but I couldn't really bring myself to get into them. I really enjoyed Silver Stories, though. Yeah, I'm a fangirl, I admit it, but I think he had some really creative arcs.
I didn't mean to sound insensitive when I said that. The jab towards Sonic 4 is mostly a joke about how no one talks about it anymore. I already compared Rise of Lyric to Ratchet & Clank before, but that's because Boom's satirical writing is similar. I'd call Rise of Lyric a kid-friendly Ratchet & Clank since the game is rated T, and I promise it is rated T, I own it. As for Team Sonic Racing, we didn't include any of the racing games like Transformed. TSR was mentioned and not the other ones because it was new at the time.
I think also at this point we remembered them at the last minute, and by then we didn't have enough time to adjust our lists. We're still new at all this.
Another friend of mine, he also goes by Ways. He made his own tone tier list for how he thought the game should be ranked. I've conducted an interview with okay, actually no, we had a conversation and I recorded part of it, and I'll post it as a separate video. I was planning on putting it in this video, but we talked for way too long. If you want to hear Ways and I talk and laugh completely unscripted, that's the video for you. I've worked with Ways before, he's a great writer, and he's a longtime Sonic fan. I like having conversations with him, so I think you'll enjoy what he has to say. Last video, Sonic Adventure 2 and Next Gen, Part 1, Characters. I've already responded to this one, but I wanted to expand upon my thoughts. At the very beginning of the video, we mentioned that people like to be contrarian for the sake of views. I didn't hold back any criticism or give undue credit, but SA2 isn't untouchable, and Sonic 06 isn't irredeemable. I'm not writing my thoughts on the games with a thesis, since I'm working off of Roger and Liz the entire time. Therefore, I'm not going to peddle something akin to Sonic 06 isn't as bad as you remember, or SA2 is worse than you remember, because that's not why the channel exists. They will become more clear when the next two parts come out.
I know I'm the one who mostly advocates for Next Gen, but like Aaron, I will give criticism where it is due. It does have a lot of technical errors, the story is unbalanced, but there are a lot of great ideas there. And my thoughts on Adventure 2 is a result of the lack of criticism I have seen towards the game. Both games have their strengths and weaknesses, and Aaron and I want to address them.
I'm not a huge fan of adventure-era games. That's a rare sentence, but in all seriousness, you talk about Sonic 06 being rushed, but so was Sonic Adventure 2. We'll be talking about why this is when we get into gameplay. I haven't played through the entirety of Adventure 1 yet, but I can already tell it's a more finished product than 2. Your comment about Tails is something I've never heard before. You say that he's too independent in Adventure 2 and that he should have struggled, while still being useful. Normally people praise Tails' development, and it's even mentioned in SA2 in a newspaper article. After Tails' arc in Adventure 1, it makes sense that Tails has way more confidence in the sequel. It does take away any sort of interest in his character, since his arc is over and done with apparently. Same issue in Sonic Next Gen, both Tails and Knuckles are afterthoughts instead of actual characters. Tails having some sort of struggle might have worked, as long as it didn't clutter what was already there, and that's directed towards both games. Liz and I are Dark Age fans, I suppose. Games from Heroes to Unleashed is what I grew up with. It's startling going from Sonic 06 to Sonic Lost World. This goes back to our tone video. A balance needs to be struck when it comes to these games. Sonic 06 failed on that. SA2, while not as bad, is pretty dark. Rise of Lyric has an atmospheric and grounded feel to it. I don't know how well it meshes with Sonic Boom's writing style. That's the byproduct of them combining Sonic Synergy and Sonic Boom into one product, but we could save that for when we make a video about Boom. Then you bring up a dichotomy. Modern games have a story built around character interactions, while older games have character interaction built around story. What writing style is better sounds like something that's up to preference. More importantly to me, it depends on the execution of each method. You could say that Lost World has a story built around the character interaction. The premise is Sonic, Tails, and Eggman have to team up against a common enemy, and they wrote a plot around that. But if character interactions don't work, then the story doesn't work either. Meanwhile, if you have a story that you write character interactions around, then you run the risk of, like you said, forced character interactions and contrivances for the story to work. Not only that, but if your story sucks, the character interactions might be the only good thing about it. I can go on and on about this, but this is talk that should be saved for part 2, because Liz had an interesting point about how story and gameplay interact.
And the two of us spend a lot of time understanding the characters of the games because that is what we like. In later parts when we talk about gameplay will be more your style. I get what you're saying about environments. Sonic is an abstract character to begin with. While I personally like the relative realistic environments in Next Gen, I do think the sets could be a little bit more abstract. After all, Sonic Heroes was my first Sonic game in a long time, and its sets were as abstract as Pumpkin Hill. But if I had to pick a game that made realism and stylization work the best, I think Sonic Unleashed nailed it. It helps that the human characters are stylized as well, making them fit more in Sonic's universe. Although I think Pumpkin Hill is out of place in Adventure 2, but we'll talk about that in part 2.
There is no seams about it. SA2 was rushed for Christmas, just like Sonic 06 was. I haven't looked too much into the deleted scenes that you're talking about. I'll definitely put the research in for part 2 when we talk about story.
You might have noticed by now that Erin and I have very different roles in this channel. She's much better at research than I am. I mostly just have a critical eye for story and game itself.
Aw, thank you. I noticed things like Eggman's Japanese lines accidentally being left in the English version of the game, and, Terria! But, I didn't know that Sonic Adventure 2 had such a bad translation across the whole thing. I looked up a lot of stuff about cut dialogue and content thanks to this comment. I fully intend to watch the Japanese versions of the cutscenes for both games because of this. We could be missing out on some story details that are literally lost in translation.
I kinda suspected that Adventure 2 had awkward translations, and while it is inevitable in translating itself, as things will be altered due to language differences, I think when it gets to the point that you completely lose context is a problem, especially if there was a way to save that context.
I found the deleted scene you were talking about online thanks to Speep's Highways video, Sonic Adventure 2, Unused Content, and Trivia. It makes what Amy brought up have some context, however flawed it might be. Your criticism about 06 being disconnected from the rest of the series is valid. The only argument against it is that Shadow's Arc in 06 wouldn't work if not for SA2. There's also the rumor that 06 was a reboot of sorts, which would explain the disconnect, but I haven't found any evidence supporting this.
Also, in these clips, Shadow looks more hyper than super. By the way, when are we going to see Hyper again? I'm really curious about that now.
Really great stuff, people. This kind of talk is exactly what we want from Sonic Innovation. The wheel of progress can't turn without fuel. We have an idea of how to make these fan response videos now, so you can expect these to be a bit more frequent. Thank you very much for the feedback so far. We'll link the conversation I had with Ways in the description and in the end card if you're interested. Our next project is part 2 of Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Next Gen. We'll be going more into story and plot. See you soon.
Until next time!